Yeah.
And
So yeah.
just
So
a
I just
reminder,
saw the link, Ayush. You want me to share it here on the chat?
oh, I was saying that feel free to go through that link, but if it's too much hassle, just feel free to go through the live demo.
Yeah. So yeah. So in the chat box, you will find that there is a link to the pre-recorded demo. So it's a very brief demo that tells you what is where and stuff. But don't worry, I'll anyways take you through it. So I'm going to reshare my screen and then start. Okay. Okay. So this is the Answer This homepage. And yeah, we're at the right place. So the homepage is visible, right? I just want to reconfirm that all of you are able to see the homepage. It's fine?
Good.
Yeah. Okay, great. So now where do we start? Say, for instance, I am a researcher who is just starting out on my research journey. And then I am at a phase where I have to find the research gaps from literature. Or say, for instance, I'm at a stage where I have to start writing my research proposal. I have this idea stuck in my head, but then this idea has to go from a simple one sentence idea into a full-fledged research proposal or into a full-fledged research review. It is at this stage that instead of going through the conventional route, say for instance, how do you normally do it? You throw these ideas, you break down your idea into a set of keywords or key strings, and then go into your Google Scholar, PubMed, or any of the other literature databases. You throw these keywords into these databases. You collect papers, sometimes thousands of papers pop up, most of which are not even relevant to what you're trying to search for. Instead, when you use tools like AnswerThis, what happens is you get to throw your ideas directly into the tools. And instead of starting from just the list of literature, you get to start with the content, with the summary, with these super summaries of multiple literatures that get collated by these AI tools. So how would I start? So the simplest way to start is I can just use this feature called the prompt helper to find the relevant tool, because AnswerThis can act as a tool that can help you develop your draft literature review, but then it can also help you, say, for instance, generate a research outline or generate a research proposal for that matter. Though most of these features do have overlaps, say, for instance, I want to develop a research outline. So I already have this idea in my head, and I would want to move from this idea into a research outline, eventually to writing it out as a full-fledged research proposal. So I pick this the prompt helper for generating a research outline, and say for instance I am someone who's interested in this lifestyle change called intermittent fasting. So intermittent fasting is a lifestyle change where you restrict the feeding or restrict your eating window to say somewhere around 8 hours, and then you fast for the rest of the day. And this is touted as a good management strategy for tackling metabolic disorders like type 2 diabetes or say fatty liver disease and so on. And health is everyone's concern. So I just wanted to pick this example for today. Say, for instance, my goal is to see how does intermittent fasting help in the management of type 2 diabetes in young adults. So all I have to do is just hit on create. And now the prompt is here. So because I picked the prompt helper for a research outline, it has kind of fine-tuned my prompt to make sure that this keyword exists. And then I can go ahead and let AnswerThis skim through several papers and then come back with an outline, or more importantly, sometimes the draft literature review as well. So how does this change the way in which we do conventional literature reviews? So conventional literature reviews offer a lot of distractions. So if we'll have to talk about the cons of using AI for generating these literature review drafts, in the conventional sense, you miss out a lot of time because you will have to skim through a lot of papers that are not really relevant. But then when we talk about the limitations of using AI for generating these outlines, one of the potential limitations that I see is that when you go through these thousands of papers, some of which sometimes appear to be unrelated on the surface, but when you dig deeper, sometimes they do tend to give you these very different perspectives that help you iterate on your ideas to come up with better proposals, for instance. You're too focused, when you're too narrow in your search, maybe you could miss out on these eureka moments, which could lead to potentially a better research path, I would say. But having said that, the time that you save when you use AI tools to quickly reach from the ideation stage to first draft is definitely undeniable. So it saves a lot of effort, it saves a lot of time. You don't have to face the writer's block anymore. You are not alone here trying to write this proposal. You're not staring at a blank page. Instead, you have an assistant who can quickly pick this information, the relevant information from across millions of papers, and you get to start from some base material instead of having to work through everything line after line from scratch. So let us wait for the results to pop up. This takes a moment because the research is thorough. The algorithm takes its own time to make sure that you get the best results out of the papers that are out there, which means results do come with time. So maybe you could take a few minutes by the time my results come out to check out the different prompts or different prompt helpers that are available to you on AnswerThis, and also see how well this works for a topic of your choice. So say, for instance, I'm going to let you play around with this tool for the next 5 minutes, especially for this feature where you start with the prompt helper, design a prompt appropriately depending on whatever is your topic for which you're trying to create a literature review, and then use this prompt to do a quick search to generate the outline, generate the research proposal depending on whatever you pick. So in my case, I picked the outline, and the tool has done much more than the outline, I would say. So I have these nicely divided outline paragraphs which tell me basically what are the different perspectives that I have to be exploring, which are the different directions in which I have to think when I'm thinking on a proposal, when I'm thinking on a literature review that deals with intermittent fasting and diabetes. So one good thing is that you get a very detailed literature review that has thought this through in multiple dimensions, and also that this information. So just because an AI gives me an information, I wouldn't want to place my 100% trust in an AI and just take its word for granted for truth. Instead, I would prefer that the tool gives me information, but then also tells me where this information is coming from, what is the source of this information, so that I can go back and verify the information at its source. So throughout the outline and throughout the content, you would see that there are citations. You just have to click through the citations to get details of the actual reference, and you get to see small summaries of the reference in the right panel. But you don't have to stop with this. You can actually go to the original web page, just click on the DOI, and you are taken to the original journal page where the paper is published, which means if I choose to, then I can verify every single sentence. Maybe it is not necessary to verify every single sentence, but then when certain information is critical, or when I find that there are information that appears to be a bit contradictory or could be controversial, could be the fulcrum from where I can pick up my own research proposals, then in those very sensitive cases, I might want to go back to the original paper and then verify the information before I proceed further with the literature review. And not just the citations. If you scroll down, you'll see that the reference list is also generated in a uniform style with accurate details. And you also have a choice where you can convert your references into a style of your choice. at least through any of these major styles. And when you make a change in the style, the change is not just applied to the reference list, but it is also applied to the in-text citations. Say, for instance, right now it is in the Chicago style, which is well aligned with the Vancouver style, which follow the numbered format of references and numbered format of in-text citations and numbered reference list as well. Say, for instance, I do not want the numbered reference list. Instead, I want the author year format of references. I can just pick the Harvard style, and now the style has been applied to the reference list, but then the in-text citations have also been revised correspondingly, making it easier for me to manage my references with its limitations. So even though the styles are limited at the moment, this still helps to make these quick conversions, and also gives me the possibility to check information, cross-validate the information from original sources. But then say, for instance, I like the paper. So I started out with a simple sentence, and then I went into the full text. I like what I see on the full text. Now I would like to understand this paper much better. And that can happen with this feature called Chat with Paper, where you get to ask specific questions to a single paper. So why should you ask questions to a paper instead of reading a paper? Because, okay, so there was a small error here. Because reading a paper takes several hours, but when you ask questions, it is much more easier to extract very specific information. And this information, it's also reliable because the paper is right in front of you. You ask the questions, the tool picks up the answers right from within the paper. It also kind of highlights where this information is coming from, which means you get to cross-validate the information right there for every single paper that you want to interact. So there's an error, but essentially that is how this feature would work. So I'm going to give you 5 minutes to explore these features, ask any quick questions if you have them, and then we'll move on to the next feature. Maybe we look into the AI writer feature to see how you can kind of co-write. But before that, we could also have a quick look into the deep search feature to show you how much of a difference it could make when the search is much more detailed. It's much more intensive when you kind of have the best algorithm in its class on the tool to help you with generating your literature reviews. So any quick questions? In the meanwhile, keep exploring the tool and then come up with questions. Okay, so for those of you who say the chat is not accessible, I guess you can still drop your questions into the Q&A. It will be taken up from here. You don't have to worry about the chat box per se. Okay, so if you're worrying about the link for the demo, which is in the chat box, I am just transferring it to the Q&A window, and I hope you get to see it in the Q&A window now.
Great point. And also, Sonny asked a really good question. I assume the tool is able to identify all papers, even though behind paywalls, I assume we'd need to obtain those ourselves. With AnswerThis, whenever you do anything that involves paper searching, so search papers, literature review, some of the AI writer features, when you do look for papers, you'll see an option in the filter section to select between 4 databases. These are where your papers source. Oh, go ahead, sorry.
No, Ayush. I said we look into the filter as well when we go into the next search bar.
Yeah, absolutely. But those will be the paper databases, and yeah, not always will AnswerThis have the full PDF paper for download, but you'll be able to identify the papers and what the paper was about with AnswerThis. And there's plenty of PDF papers that you'll receive as well. There's also a lot of questions about AI plagiarism. With AnswerThis, we do have the AI writer tool, which Samaya will dive deep into. But this is one way where you can sort of take the literature review and literature that AnswerThis has given you and be able to edit it and put your own academic tonality into it. And that being said, there will also be tools of AnswerThis inside and outside where you can also do rewording of literature and your work in order to bypass the AI plagiarism and try and make the work fit your tonality and really adjust it to how you want it to be.
Okay. So I'm going to continue now. Yeah. So on the so one of you had asked a question as to how did I go to the prompt helper? So you're on the home page. The prompt helper is right here. And you don't have to always use the prompt helper and then click to select a tool. You can pick a tool. But in most of the cases right now, I believe there is a lot of overlap between the different functionalities, the different prompts that you provide, because at the end, the response that you get is still an elaborate literature review at the moment. It is not always just the outline. It is not just always the research gaps, though the tool does tend to align the responses to your questions. But right now, it is still a much elaborate response. So the prompt helper, yes, you can use it. But even without the prompt helper, you can just ask a simple question here, and you will still get a detailed literature review answer. So there are three different types of searches here on AnswerThis. The first is a simple search assistant. The second is where you ask for a thorough literature review for the question that you want. And then there is the deep research feature where you get deep search options, which means the output is much better, but then your prompt also has to be better. So the tool ensures that you give all the necessary details, and then it comes out with an output that is much deeper. It has it is an iterative process, which means it kind of removes errors and gives you a much better level of accuracy. You also have an option where you can find answers or develop this literature review based on papers. I believe AnswerThis at the moment has access to more than 2 million papers, if I'm right. But then you can also upload your own PDFs, because not all papers are available. There are papers behind paywalls. And of course, access to papers behind paywalls is still a limitation with several tools. I believe AnswerThis also faces this limitation and difficulty at the moment. But then say you have access to these papers and you want these papers, the complete papers, to be a part of your literature review process, you can simply upload the papers and then make sure your review is happening from them. Say, for instance, you want to go beyond the papers and include internet sources also on your search. That can also happen when you use this feature called internet. And then there are these filters. For one of you who talked about inaccurate references, I saw that Ayush had already answered your question. So you can get an answer of different types, and then you can pick the number of citations that you want, and enabling the turbo mode makes it go faster. And there was one other question that talked about the duration it takes for the tool to come out with the response. So in my experience with the tool, I would say 2 minutes tops, 2 to 3 minutes tops is what the tool asks of you to give a proper response. And in most of the cases, this time limit is adhered to, which means that's the time you can expect for your result to come out. And say, for instance, you are busy with something else, you have started the query, but you don't want to wait to see the results. AnswerThis always gives you it sends you an email with a link to your results, even if you're busy. So you can always check your email later on, follow the link to see the response for your particular question. You get to pick the databases. So do you want the response to come only out of research papers? Should you also include internet searches and so on? And one good thing is you can also include your patents. And when you have populated your library sufficiently, maybe your library could also be a great source. Now, being able to control the quality of the journals from which the information comes out of is a huge advantage, I would say. So if it were me, I would clearly steer my literature search to Q1, Q2, Q3. Maybe in the earlier days or in the first few days of doing my drafting, I would maybe stick to just Q1 and Q2 journals, because these are the top quality journals. And if my aim is to write a top-notch literature review or do top-notch research and publish my own papers in top-notch journals, then this control on quality has to start from where my literature is coming from. So maybe I would restrict it to Q1, Q2, or at the most to Q3. I would steer a bit clear away from Q4, especially if my niche area is a pretty popular field with quite a number of references, quite a number of literature. Maybe if I'm working in a very niche field that has very little literature, that doesn't get the limelight that it deserves, maybe it makes sense to add a bit of Q4 journals, because maybe these are the journals where you will actually find your work getting published. So it all depends on the niche, but in majority of the cases, sticking between Q1 to Q3 is a good choice. You also get to control the date. Say, for instance, I only want papers published in the last 3 years, last 3 years, 2 years, for instance, not more than that. You get to decide that. And then some of you were talking about inaccuracies in citations. So this is a feature, when enabled, ensures that these inaccuracies are kept to a minimum and you get better citations, more accurate citations. Then you can submit search. So what happens when I set the tool on deep research to do my search? So you can do this parallelly. That by the time my results are ready, your results would be ready as well. So I'm asking the same question, just that now instead of literature review, I'm moving into the deep search feature. So you can also set a query, it run, and once we have the results, we can come back, check to see how different is the result from a simple search or a literature review search and the deep search. So I'm going to also go check back the questions once again. So to answer the question here, yes, the tool works for all fields of research as far as I understand. If I'm wrong, Ayush, please correct me. Yeah, I know some of these questions are very broad questions. I'll come to it at the end of the session so as to not disrupt the flow of the session. I'm going to give you 2 more minutes to set the tool on the task of doing a deep search for your question. And then we let the tool finish the analysis, finish the literature review part. In the meanwhile, we can slowly start exploring the other aspects of the tool. So last 2 minutes to set your question and run the deep search. Okay, so I'm moving into the next feature called library. So this is where you can upload papers, and then you get to view these papers in tabular forms. So when you have uploaded multiple papers, I know I have not uploaded sufficient papers. So say for instance, so there are a set of papers in my library. I'm going to just pick all of them and then add them to the table. So now I get to see the key points from each of these papers. I can make this better by moving into the extract data feature, which means I can extract very specific information from across these multiple papers. How exactly is this helpful? Say, for instance, I'm just starting out on reading these papers and I want to find the key findings from different papers. Or say, for instance, I'm trying to write a research proposal. How do I conventionally find research gaps? I go into these 50, 60, 100 papers, different PDFs. I look for specific information, especially say the research question in the introduction section, because I can pick the same research question and then come up with a novel way to solve the same problem that in itself is a good research proposal. Or I can go into the discussion section and find the limitations of the study. I can do this for multiple studies, and in cases where I find that these multiple studies, they share limitations amongst themselves, then I can go ahead and find a way to solve this limitation, provided I can find this research gap information or limitations information from across multiple papers. Now, this step of extracting this very specific information from across papers is what has been made easy with AI tools like AnswerThis. So instead of doing this manually, I can just add the necessary columns. So I can add research gap, and then I can add limitations, and then I can add, say, future directions. So now I get to see this very specific information from across multiple papers, from across 100 papers, if I so want. And now this will tell me what exactly are the research gaps that exist. What are the limitations of the study? What are the future directions that are suggested by the authors? Because these are in most cases the promising directions that research can take. Maybe some of these directions are being already explored by the authors, but then there are a few that still remains unexplored, and that could form a very nice way in which I can set the direction for my own research work, for developing my research proposals, and so on. So you get to import libraries from your, say, reference manager. So wherever you save your research papers, most of the cases it could be in your Google Scholar library. So you can just go to Google Scholar. You can go to your My Profile or My Library on Google Scholar, download the entire collection as a RAS file or as a BibTeX file, and then you can simply import it into AnswerThis to start exploring these papers more intimately by moving them into a tabular view where you can export or extract very specific data. And once you have done this, once you have this detailed table, you get to also export your reference information, or you can also pick selective papers and say, for instance, run a bibliometric analysis to exactly understand how references, how literature in this particular niche area of your interest has evolved over the past years, for instance. By the time this runs, so this is the bibliometric analysis. You have all the necessary information to tell you how has been the publication history, how have been the citations, for instance, and what is the exact impact, what are the top terms that are used in these papers, across these top papers that you have picked, who are the top authors, how have their impact to literature. So all of these questions that you would ask on a bibliometric analysis gets answered when you use the library feature to upload your papers to extract information. So you can do multiple things here. So this library could be the repository of the key papers that you want to do the literature review on. This is also the place where you can extract very specific information across multiple papers. You also get to populate, develop this library, and eventually move it to your reference manager, or vice versa. Say you populate in your reference manager or Google Scholar libraries and then move into AnswerThis for better extraction of data. You also get to do a quick bibliometric analysis to see how literature is faring. So a good bibliometric analysis could be the starting point for a scoping review, even maybe. So you just have to get creative to make the best use out of this particular feature. So let's go back and look at the result of the deep research feature before we pause for 5 minutes, and then we'll move on to the next feature. So this is your literature review, and the tool has really thought this out, all the different ways in which you will have to approach the say the particular topic that you're interested in. Okay. This is just the outline that I see here. Let that run. So maybe 5 minutes for you to explore the library feature before we come back and start exploring the AI writer feature. So first, you started off with a question. You had to build your library, find those papers. And once you found the papers, then comes the data extraction stage where you have to extract very specific information from across these multiple papers and also understand the development of literature over a certain point in time, at least across your papers. And then comes a stage where you want to co-write with the AI tool, where you bring in certain information and then you want the AI tool to help you quickly find papers, quickly complete the train of thought that you have with citations, with references, and so on. So that is what will become possible with the AI writer feature.
Just another quick reminder for those of you who may have just joined in the last 15 minutes, but be sure to check the chat. I also just put another one in the Q&A there to go to the link that's in the chat. This is the link that you need to go to in order to receive your certificate. I can see a lot of people in the chat saying how to claim their certificate, how do they get answer this trial. Please go through this link. And yes, very nice, it worked. Okay, perfect. Yeah, just make sure to go through that link.
Okay. So I'm going to go back to the tool to show you the AI write feature. Yeah. So this is still running. So how do I use the AI writer feature? What does it offer? So you can start a new document and then say, yeah, in my case, I already have a document set. Maybe for a change of pace, I want to write about intermittent fasting and liver disease. So I create a document. This is pretty much a simpler version of Word, which means you can write, you can format, and considering that the reference styles are also taken care of to a certain extent, you might not want to leave out of the editor. So if you are on the tool, maybe you want to do your literature search, you want to extract data, and then also write on the tool up until a point where you need to move to your MS Word document for submission to the journal or so on. So let us start titling the document, or even better, I can just start with the topic and I can start by generating outlines. Say, for instance, I want the tool to give me 10 headings with 3 subheadings each on this particular topic. So I start here again, as I mentioned, you don't have to start from scratch, but rather you can start with the outline. So let's give the tool a moment. Once you generate the outlines, you have an option where you can prompt the tool to start filling in the details under each of these subheadings. So you can convert the outline basically into a full answer, which means you go from having just the TOC to a draft abstract or a draft literature review. You also get to edit sections using AI. This comes in handy, especially when you are co-creating with AI. There are certain sections that were written by the AI, but then there are also certain sections where you have made changes, you have brought in your own writing. and especially if you're coming from a country where English is not your first language, then tackling the formal language requirements of a manuscript could be difficult. That is where the editing features can come in handy. So this is the outline. So maybe I'll just I think this is a question for Ayush at a later point in time. Even when we start or when we aim to create just the outlines, what I tend to see with Answer This is it takes it one step further and usually generates the entire review as well, at least much more detailed points than a simple outline. So was this intentional? The reasons behind, maybe we'll ask Ayush that once we are done with the session. So you have your outline, a much detailed outline with sufficient number of citations and references. And you also have a reference list at the end, I believe. So this would help you quickly go from an idea to outlines while also having a canvas where you can do a lot of your own writing. So say, for instance, I have some information too that gets added here. I can keep adding, I can keep co-writing with it. Now say, for instance, I want the tool to say I have a simple idea, which says intermittent fasting is also beneficial in type 2 diabetes. So this is an idea that is not a part of the outline because the outline is talking only about liver disease. But then suddenly, as I'm writing the review, I have this new idea that because liver disease and diabetes, they have a lot of interlink between each other. I also want to talk a bit about type 2 diabetes and stuff. So now I can pick this option called continue writing, and I can ask the tool to continue writing from where the cursor is placed, and then I can simply hit on continue writing. So now the tool is trying to find information pertaining to type 2 diabetes, pertaining to this sentence, but then only from the sources that already exist within the document, which might not be a right way to go about. So say, for instance, I want the tool to also focus on additional references, especially in this particular title. Now, once I give the leverage to Answer This to go look for additional sources, not be constricted by what is already available on this canvas here, then it tends to do a better job of coming back with the information that will help me expand on my thought process as and when I write. So with the AI writer feature, I did not have to start with a blank page. I had an assistant, I had a co-writer, which would help me brainstorm, which will help me quickly go from simple ideas to developing outlines and then building on these outlines to entire literature review. So now, because I allow the tool to go search for sources apart from what was included in the original draft, the tool could come back with a lot more, a lot better content, because now it had the privilege to do that. So you can ask the tool to rephrase, you can ask the tool, set it on a task of expanding the outline. So it's basically like having a co-writer. So you do a part of the job, the co-writer does a part of the job, and then between the both of you, you get the work done eventually. So this is what can happen with the AI edit feature. So you can also pretty much do the basic stylistic changes that you do with Word. And yes, this is very drafty at the point, I would say. So this is just the starting point. So to answer one of the questions that we often encounter, will AI generated content show up in the AI check on Turnitin on any of the other tools? Naturally, obviously, it should. It will to a greater extent even. But the goal of using these tools is not to replace the human writer, is not to replace the researcher in yourself, but rather to find you some help, to find you some assistance so that this entire process of brainstorming, writing, rewriting over and over 1,000 times, by the time you reach your final draft, much more easy. So if you use these tools as assistants where you're using them to quickly find information, but you are still holding the reins, you are still doing the major part of the writing, you ensure that you go back to the original sources and vet that the information that is coming out of these tools, like AnswerThis, inclusive of AnswerThis, are accurate enough. Then you don't have to actually worry about AI content detection, because you are not allowing the AI to take over and complete the task for you, but rather you are using it as the assistant where you're still leading the writing journey. And this applies to any of the other AI tools that you can name. Any AI tool that does writing, any of the other AI tools that extract data for you, any of the other AI tools that paraphrase the content for you, all of this still falls under AI generated content. Is it right? Is it not right? Should we give much more autonomy to the writers to use AI? These are all very politically loaded questions at the moment. But the truth is that, yes, if you use an AI tool to write your final drafts, then the final drafts should show up as AI generated content, at least to a maximum extent. And there is no wrong in that. So how do you set this off, or how do you manage the situation, is by simply being the main writer, the main character of your story, and then using AI to make certain tasks easier. So at every single stage, take help from AI. But when you're moving closer to the final draft, most of the thoughts, most of the writing has to still come from the humans, because that is what publishers want. That is how the publisher guidelines, the journal guidelines have been designed at the moment. So apart from the writing part, AnswerThis also offers certain other features like creating a citation map. Say, for instance, you can start from a single paper and then quickly find the top 15-20 papers that are closely related to this paper of your choice. This will help you build literature directionally, build literature intentionally. I'm not going much into this feature, but this exists. This can help you. And then about the search papers feature, this is where your goal is not to exactly generate entire literature reviews, but then you have these small thoughts in your heads and you just want to make sure that whatever you are writing, the thoughts that you're trying to present is backed up by good literature. And that is where the search papers feature come into effect. And then the diagrams feature is where you can create diagrams from your prompts, where you can also pick certain templates or certain template types and then create diagrams from scratch. So say, for instance, I hope this is live, because this feature was developed pretty recently, I believe, and it's still under a lot of construction here. So, okay, so this is possibly a preview, and going forward, I believe this will get better. But even for a preview that happened in less than 30 seconds, I would say the tool has really thought about the different branches that you should be exploring when you're trying to talk about this particular topic or do a literature review on this particular topic. So this kind of brings the follow through to an end. Maybe you can take a few minutes to explore these features for yourself before you can start dropping questions into the chat box. I'll leave it to Ayush to take a few questions.
Yeah, more than happy. And yeah, thank you so much for presenting so much of the tool there. I think you did a great job of explaining how researchers can genuinely use AnswerThis to excel their efficiency and quality of research. I really liked your notes on AI generated content and using the AI writer as well. I think that's extremely valuable. And yeah, more than happy to run through some of the questions that have been popped into the chat. I have seen quite a few. I'm more than happy to run through them here. I'll just start picking some of the questions. If you see any questions in particular that are interesting, feel free to let me know. And also to everyone in here, feel free to continue firing your questions. I will most likely get to them. And I just want to make clear that, again, for people who have joined in the last 20 minutes, half an hour, feel free to go to the chat and click on the link to receive 7-day trial and the AnswerThis certificate for this webinar. I'm sure you want to make good use of your time, and the certificate is a great way to show competency with AI and research. Just scrolling through the questions, I see that the first question here, how would you compare AnswerThis to other tools such as Paper Guide, SciSpace, Perplexity, etc.? That's a great question, and I even seen someone previously ask about how does AnswerThis compare to Consensus as well. Although these tools are great, there is a few things to note. One is each of these tools, Perplexity, Consensus, Paper Guide, they are good, but they're focused on one particular aspect of research, whereas AnswerThis will focus on everything that you need from preliminary research to what Sumaya showed us of AI writing and editing our paper to hopefully then be published and sent off. Unfortunately, these other tools, they don't quite have these capabilities where you can go from ideation to completion with your research. And that's something that we're very passionate about here at AnswerThis to make sure we achieve. Also, one thing to note, and I always am completely transparent and I tell everyone about this when I talk about AnswerThis, is that although AnswerThis, I would say, is slightly slower than other tools in terms of the literature review and output, its answers and comprehensiveness is by far superior when compared to other tools. In terms of the relevance of papers that you will receive, in terms of how accurate the literature that you create actually is, and how the literature itself flows and how many sources are used, AnswerThis excels in all these metrics compared to other tools. In fact, when it comes to the amount of sources and the relevance of sources, AnswerThis is quite simply unmatched. So I would say that would be like the two main points I'd say. I could definitely go, feature for feature and compare each tool analytically, but we would definitely be here all day. I also seen someone further up in the chat, they were asking how to find documents in French, or how to make the literature review in French. AnswerThis can make a literature review in any language, and it can also find documents from any language as well. A very important thing to keep note of is that when you're inside the literature review prompt, you want to make sure that you mention explicitly, make my literature review in French, or find papers that are related to this prompt that in French or X language, And AnswerThis will make the literature review or find the documents that you need into any of the languages specified. I do think it's also a good time to mention as well in terms of how to make prompts for AnswerThis. AnswerThis is capable of making comprehensive tables and to lay out all the quantitative data of maybe your PDFs or your maybe you're doing a broad literature review and you're just searching for the literature that is out there. You can ask it to analyze quantitative data in X field and to put it into a table. And AnswerThis will certainly not disappoint you with the results that will come out in terms of finding the data to put into that table and showing it into a very digestible way. I'll read a few more questions. Feel free to send them in here. I'll also just put in one last time our important offer. This is where you will receive your certificate and also your 7-day trial. Make sure to look in either the Q&A section or the chat section, and you'll be able to find the link to get your certificate and 7-day trial of AnswerThis. And yes, if there are any issues at all, please email us at ayush@answerthis.io. That is ayush@answerthis.io. You'll be able to find places to contact us, but that will be for the best efficient communication. Are we able to search other databases from the tool, e.g. IEEE Explorer? As far as I know, we actually do have IEEE Explorer inside of our database. So whenever you type a prompt in the literature review tool and go into filters, you can select all the databases, and I believe that should be part of one of them. Additionally, if you want to use web as a source, you can use EDU websites, government websites, patents, or just all websites in general as a source as well. It can be really good if you're looking for broad questions. I actually find that if I'm looking for maybe conferences in research fields, if you use the web as part of your filter, if you use the web as a database, it'll find really up-to-date information on even conferences that may be happening near your area, and for other general questions, the web feature works really well. And then, yeah, to answer your question, definitely select all the research databases to find all the papers that there are. There's been a lot of questions about AI detection. I think Sumaya did a really good job of answering this. You can use the AI editor tool inside of AnswerThis and rewrite the literature to your exact phrasing or to your tonality of how you'd like it. You can also use custom prompts inside the AI editor and the continue writing features or rewording features. And the GPT helper that essentially, if you highlight any piece of your text inside of your literature, you can just type in a prompt right there and it will adjust the text to what you've put in the prompt. So these are great ways to change the tonality. In terms of bypassing AI detectors, of course, you want to uphold your own academic integrity and insert your tonality and your voice into the literature. That being said, that we do have tools that technically bypass AI detectors and are designed to insert your tone. These are actually things that we're working on and that we're inserting into the tool. And yeah, if you simply sign up for the link that is shared into the chat, you'll naturally get updated of when these features will come out and where to access these features. Let's see. Let me go through a few more questions. Feel free to send any last questions you may have. Let's see here. Yes, the webinar will be shared to all of your guys' emails. Also, stay tuned into the AnswerThis YouTube channel. This is where the webinar will be posted as well. If you need to go back, and if you've joined recently, or if you've had to leave, or if you're leaving like in the next 2 minutes, please remember that your certificate can be claimed at a later date. And after this webinar is posted and after you receive the email, you can still sign up through the link that I sent into the chat in order to receive your certificate on trial as well. Let's see. If I have full text papers in PDF format that I want AnswerThis to refer to, can the tool provide the references of the PDF paper accurately? Yes, although you have to make sure that you formatted your paper properly or your PDF properly. It depends where you're inserting the PDF from. If you've got Zotero, if you've got a big research folder, research project folder in Zotero or Mendeley, in the library section, you can head over to import, and you can import your Zotero or your Mendeley database into there. Your citations will still remain well, and you can use that library then to make a literature review, and everything will be referenced and formatted to your exact needs. I hope that answered your question. Feel free to follow up. Can I get additional summaries of these papers and references? Yes, you absolutely can. So after you've made your literature review, or maybe you have a bunch of papers that you've saved or that you found in a literature review that you'd like to summarize, if you select on those papers, you can find the summarize option at the top of the source section. This will create summaries of the papers, and I find it immensely helpful, especially when writing papers and writing essays, to quickly find what these big, 30-page papers are talking about, and to create summaries very quickly. Let's go to the bottom here. We try to have 24-hour support, but sometimes we have busier periods than others. But yes, we try to have support at as much time as possible. For anyone currently facing any difficulties at all, please make sure that you're going to the right link. Make sure to click on this link. Don't search AnswerThis up, or else you won't get the certificate and the offer. Make sure to click on the link that's been sent into the Q&A chat in order to receive your 7-day trial and your certificate for attending today's webinar. Let's take one more here. Apart from gaps identification, can it help analyze your data? Absolutely. So there's a few ways AnswerThis can help analyze your data. One, which is sort of what we were talking about, where you can insert all your sources from maybe Zotero, Mendeley, or maybe you have loads of PDFs of papers that you want to extract data from. You can insert them into your library by pressing import. From there, as Sumaya sent or had went through earlier, and you can go back into the webinar in order to look at how it was done. But you can then select the extract data feature. From there, you can either insert a custom prompt of what data you want to extract from your papers, or you can select one of the pre-made data extractions, such as research gaps, or maybe topic questions. You can select that. from there too. One important note that I also wanted to mention is we actually do have a few labs that have been using AnswerThis to extract data from their papers. How they have done it and what they found really useful for them in their research is that they would add maybe 10, 20 research papers into the chat with paper function. And from there, they will insert a prompt where it will say, can you make me a table that collects quantitative data of XXX data points? And from there, AnswerThis will go through all 20 papers comprehensively, extract the quantitative data points that were listed, and insert that into a table where they can very easily just look at all the data there instead of scrolling through like 30 research papers to manually find the data themselves. All right. I think unless there's any other questions coming in, that is everything. All right. Yeah. I think that's everything unless there's any questions I've missed. But yes, May, any closing remarks?
And I think great questions, and you have picked up most of it, Ayush. So the only remark is go give the tool a try now that you have free access for 7 days, and then use it wisely, use it judiciously, I would say, because the goal here is not just building a tool to replace the researcher, but then rather to help the researcher. In that respect, I think AnswerThis is a great tool. So give it a try. Don't take our word for it. Give it a try and see what works for you.
Yeah, and thank you so much for your time again. It really means a lot going through the tool. I think you did an absolutely fantastic job. And yeah, just one last time, as Sumaya mentioned there, you want to make sure that you get your full use and get all the resources you can from this webinar, so that your hour and a half spent was spent well. So I'm just inserting into the Q&A part one last time the link that you need to click in order to receive your certificate, as well as receive your 7-day AnswerThis Pro. This is a very unique special offer that we're sending out just for the attendees of this webinar. So make sure to claim that. Use the tool for yourself. And if you have any questions, I've said my email a few times, ayush@answerthis.io. Feel free to send any feedback, any questions that you may have over there. I'll actually insert it into the chat before we leave today. And yeah, absolutely amazing having everyone on here today. And yeah, looking forward to hearing how everyone uses AnswerThis to streamline their research. And yeah, of course, if you have any questions, feel free to send to my email. And yeah, looking forward to seeing all you guys get your certificates. Okay. Yeah, I think that's everything. Thank you so much, guys, again for joining. And yeah, have a great rest of your week. Ready?